So tonight we're going to be talking about the principles of color and exploring kind of the more scientific components of color, but also the emotional side of how color used in a landscape or another art piece might make an impression on someone viewing it. So colors include endless possibilities. And one thing that's important to know about color is when colors are in the distance, they appear gray, and as you get closer, the colors then emerge into view. So what we see and classify as color is actually reflected light bands of a particular wavelength. So white is really a combination of all colors of our visible light, and that's the color we see as white. Black is the absence of color being reflected. So white and black are either combinations of all colors or the absence of all colors. So if you think about it, black cars, black things, asphalt gets hot. And that's because it's absorbing all these different wavelengths of color and not reflecting anything back. So it's absorbing the heat, absorbing the wavelengths, absorbing the energy of these different colors. So color is perceived individually. So I might perceive a color as blue, and someone in the same room might also see blue, but it might appear slightly different to them. So it's similar to taste in that we all have our individual interpretation of these colors. So our nerves register color in terms of the attributes of color, and our nerves sense red or green or blue or yellow, but never both. So there's a portion of where we have these sensors in our eyes, and then our brain interprets those signals. And that's why we have a slightly different perception of color. So ancient Egyptians used color as a therapy. That has been found on papyrus writings dating back to 1550 BC. They used this for cures. Today we would call that chroma therapy. Red was used to stimulate the body and mind and increase circulation. Yellow was thought to stimulate the nerves and purify the body. Orange was used to heal the lungs and to increase energy levels. Blue believed to soothe illnesses and treat pain. And indigo shades were thought to alleviate skin problems. So one of the things that's important in understanding it and applying it to landscape design is that sometimes color can trigger an emotional response, and it can impact the moods and feelings and behaviors of the people in that space, or if it's on an art piece, viewing that painting. So I'd like you, just for your own amusement, when you look at the following pages, you're going to see some colors and write down the emotion that is triggered by those colors, and then I'll show you what typically as a society those colors are studied to trigger. So yellow is described as cheery and warm. It can be very fatiguing to the eye. It can create feelings of frustration and anger. Yellow is the most visible color and the most attention-getting color. And it's one of the reasons you see things like school buses being painted yellow, or safety and clarity and people being able to see that vehicle. So purple has been associated with royalty and wealth. It's thought to represent wisdom and spirituality. It sometimes appears exotic and artificial, but those are some of the associations with purple. Not often occurring in nature, so that's one of the reasons it seems exotic. So orange is considered an energetic color, calls to mind feelings of excitement, enthusiasm, and warmth, often used to draw attention. So blue calls to mind feelings of calmness and serenity. It can create feelings of sadness or aloofness. And blue is also one of the most popular colors, but it's one that is not used well maybe in a setting where you're going to serve food, because it's one that puts people off from eating. So it's the least appetizing color. Green symbolizes nature and the natural world. Often used in decorating, it can be very calming. Green is thought to relieve stress and used in hospital settings a lot to help people heal. So red is a warm color and it can evoke strong emotions. It can be associated with love, warmth, and comfort. It can also be an intense and even angry color, so it can amplify those kinds of feelings too. So the color wheel is a tool we use as designers, and it arranges colors around the edge of it, kind of in what we would call rainbow order. So it's following the spectrum onto which white light is split, and the position around the circle is going to be important as part of a design tool. So colors that are opposite one another on the color wheel are considered complementary colors. And the high contrast of these pairs of colors creates a very vibrant, kind of exciting look to it. And if you use complementary colors, sometimes you have to manage those so that it's not too jarring to the viewer. Complementary colors are not well used in text. They can be very stressful on the eye to read. Triadic color schemes uses colors that are spaced evenly around the color wheel. So these harmonies can also be quite vibrant. And usually when in design, the way we'd use a triadic color is we would pick one of the colors as our main color, and then the other two would be support to that color. Analogous colors use colors that are next to one another on the color wheel. These are colors that typically occur in nature, and they're found to be very harmonious to us when we view them. Again, like the triadic, you can choose one color to dominate and a second color to support, and even sometimes using a third color or maybe accenting with black, white, or gray. Hue is a characteristic of color, and this is actually the name of this kind of the specific wavelength that gives us the pure color. Another description of that would be spectral color. So all the colors on the spectrum are hues, and there's only a limited number of them. You know, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet are the main ones. The rest of the colors are really combinations of these hues. And then we have value. So value is the lightness and the darkness of color. And all colors have these properties. All hues, all colors can be made in all these different values. So if we add white to it, we will bring that hue up and make that pigment lighter. Adding black will make most pigments darker. And so value can exist without hue, and you can see on the left that is a watercolor study. So many watercolor artists might prepare that painting in this value study first before they actually recreate it with color. And value, yeah, so we would say that's achromatic when we have a value study like on the left, where we're using black, white, and gray, so no true hues of color in there. Saturation is concerned with the intensity or the brightness of a color. So if it's high and is highly saturated, it's an intense and bright color. A color that is very unsaturated is low in intensity. Another term for saturation is the amount of chroma in a color. A color without any brightness, no hue, is achromatic. So that's black, white, or gray. And there's an example of kind of a landscape gravel paving done in the black and white. Now there's some color on the walls, and obviously the plants have color, but if you look at some of the landscape materials themselves, it's kind of a black and white design. That's actually a famous recording studio. So I really like this. This starts to help you maybe understand these different characteristics of color. So you can see at the point, the hue in this case is red. And if we add white to it, a tint to it, we start to pull that into kind of the pink to light red shades. If we add shade to it or black to it, we start to bring that color down into the black. And then the tone is kind of that gradient of color through the center. And value again from light to darkness of the color. Right, that's it for tonight.